Hi, everybody. Welcome to a new edition of Let's Talk About Education with Antonio Corrales. As you may know, I'm an educator and entrepreneur, and a professor at the University of Houston Clear Lake. My main goal is to introduce you to pioneers in the field of education and to let you know about topics that you may not be aware of, but you may be interested in. Today, we have the honor to have with us Ellen Akers, a seasoned educator, administrator, and an expert on flipped classrooms. She's going to explain us in simple terms what does that mean for us. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
It's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it feels like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun.
All right, Ellen, so why don't you let us know a little bit about yourself, your career, and how do you get to where you are right now?
Well, I started my career in the corporate America, and I spent
okay.
time as in management, upper level management, and progressed as a corporate trainer, and spent a lot of time going across the country. And I was training adults, and loved it. But when I started a family, I knew that I wanted to cut back on the travel, so I decided to take those skills and talents that I had training adults and use that for educating students and children. And my original degree was in business, and I went back to school and got a degree in science because that was my other passion.
Wow.
Spent my time as a high school physics teacher, advanced physics teacher, and got my master's, moved into administration, and then most recently moved into a district level position.
Wow. So you feel that a lot of those skills that you acquire in corporate America help you transferring some of those skills to education, right?
Absolutely. In some regards, I think adults are harder to teach than children because young children are so eager to learn, and they're such blank slates. They're ready to and eager to try different ways, for sometimes adults are a little harder to reach. So it was a great training ground
Absolutely.
to go into education.
That is fantastic. Now, one of the main topics that I want us to talk today is about flip instruction, and there's still a lot of misperceptions out there, lack of knowledge about flip instruction, and it's something that is really in vogue right now. A lot of districts and schools are utilizing that flip instruction, but you also hear some criticism, about it. You hear people saying, well, it's an easy way for educators or teachers basically not to teach, but basically make their life easier. So why don't you start defining for us in simple terms, what does it mean, what flip instruction means, because I know you're a pioneer in that area, and also, what will it be the right way to go and implement flip instruction in a school that had never done it before?
Well, you're right. It was, I came upon flipped instruction. I was teaching advanced physics courses, and typical lecture, work a few example problems, and then send the kids home with homework. They would be successful on the first couple of problems, and these were advanced level kids. But as the problems became more difficult and more of an application process, they struggled. And although they had bright, educated parents, it had been maybe 20 plus years since they had taken high school physics, and so they didn't really have anyone to help them at home, and I could just sense that defeat and frustration as they came back to class, not being able to apply what we had learned in class. And I just knew I needed to do something differently, and before I flipped my classroom, it was all about me. I was the center of attention in the classroom, and I wanted to shift that attention to the students. I wanted the students to be doing the work instead of me, and I wanted to shift that responsibility of learning to the students away from me. So I did a lot of research and came across a couple of guys who were pioneers in the flipped classroom out in Colorado, and I spent about a year researching what to do. And you're absolutely right. You can't just decide tonight, I think I'll flip my lesson tomorrow. It requires a great deal of planning and time, and I think that's where the misconception of you're just teaching my kid with videos might come in, because if you don't plan it, if you don't communicate it, and you don't have ways to hold your students accountable, then it will be unsuccessful.
Correct. So basically what you're saying, there is a successful and effective way to implement flipped classroom. It cannot be an improvisation that one day to another you say, I'm going to start teaching my class through videos and that's it.
Absolutely. What I did is I wanted to take what I was doing in the class, which was simply delivering information, working example problems on the board. I decided my students could do that at home by themselves without assistance from anyone. And I even started with guided notes to begin with. I made my own videos, bought some software, and simply recorded my lectures. And my students were able to use guided notes to simply write down the example problems. So they did what we were doing in class at home. Now when they came back to class, we applied that learning. We worked problems, we did labs, we worked more in-depth problems in physics, and I was there to guide them along in that process.
Correct. It wasn't that. First of all, what I'm getting for what you're saying, number one, was a step-by-step process. It wasn't like you switched to flip instruction from
Absolutely.
one day to another.
No.
It was a I would say, slow motion process.
Absolutely.
And then what you're saying, what I'm hearing you saying also is that when the kids, the students, were able to, start watching the videos at home or to their phone, then in the classroom you were engaged with the students, applying those concepts. It wasn't like you were sitting down there doing something else while they were basically doing paper sheets.
No, if anything, flipping my classroom actually increased my teacher to student interaction, because now I was really not only interacting with every single student every day, I was able to very quickly ascertain at the beginning of class what they had learned from the video the night before, where they struggled, where misconceptions might be. Even more importantly, I was then able to differentiate my classroom instruction, because those students who understood and had no questions were able to move on at their own pace and go start the lab or go start working their problems. Those students who had a question, I could pull into a small group and I could work with them and I could clarify those misconceptions and make them confident in that learning. Then they could go and do the application piece. So really flipping my classroom increased the student interaction, and it increased my ability to really meet the individual needs of all of my learners, because we know high school classes are large, typically 25, 30 plus students, and students don't learn at the same pace, and they come to you with different levels of background knowledge and prior knowledge. In a physics class, different math skills, and so the flipped classroom enabled me to really meet every student where their needs were at. But you're right, the key was that I had to prepare. I had to communicate with parents
Exactly.
I was going to do.
Why don't we tell us a little bit,
Okay.
how was that process in a summarized way? Look at step by step. So did you start researching? I guess you at that time you were in the classroom, so you had to talk to your administrators, and I guess you got the green light from your administrators.
Absolutely.
And so how was that process, especially explaining parents, that from now on, your child, I guess your new parents, your new student from the following year, like from now on, you get your child's gonna have to watch these videos as a homework, and because one of the complaints that I've heard from parents is that, well, my child is watching this video, don't understand the concept, and on top of that, they have to do a homework. So I guess because of the lack, when you're applying flip instruction in a not effective way, you send a video and you start sending some exercise with that video without knowing if the child learned the explanation, then it may be a problem in there, right?
Absolutely. And so what I had to do, first of all, I sent a letter home the very first week of school to parents, and I explained my research on the flipped classroom, and I explained exactly what that model was going to look like for learning in my classroom. And I talked about in that letter how parents could support their students at home. It's important. My goal was to meet students where they are. They live in a digital world. They've grown up in a digital world. And I wanted to harness the power of that technology, that amazing computer they have on that phone in their pocket, and turn it into a tool for learning. And so I expressed that to the parents. Like, they're always on their iPads and their phones and their laptops anyway, so let's leverage this for learning. And here's how you can help. And we talked about creating a quiet environment, providing an opportunity for them to power down, making sure that they were turning off Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook, and really just focusing for 20 to 30 minutes on that video.
So those videos that you used to send, they used to compile, were about 20 to 25 minutes, right?
Actually, they were shorter than that. I tried to
Interesting.
never make a video more than 15 minutes long.
Okay.
But on the flip side of that, no pun intended,
Mhm.
I had to teach students how to learn from a video.
Okay.
They can't watch
That's
a
an
video
interesting-
like they watch
Okay,
Netflix.
what do you mean by that? Explain
Okay.
the audience what do you mean learning from a video.
I actually, as a class, we watched several videos together
Mhm.
over successive days. I let a student come up to my desk and, as I said, drive. And I taught them the power of pause and rewind, because that's the real power in instructional videos, is that you can learn at your own pace. Students are often reluctant to raise their hand and say, Ms. Akers, I didn't understand that. Can you explain it? Other students may understand it perfectly and become bored as you're lecturing in class. So with the video, you have the power of pausing and rewinding and watching again and again, taking notes.
That is fantastic.
Yes.
I never thought about that.
And then for students who do understand the concepts and maybe a little more advanced, I would tell them, as I start to work a sample problem, if you feel like you understand it, pause it, work the problem out, fast forward to the end and see if you got the answer right. If you did, you're good to go and you're done. And if you didn't, now rewind and go back and watch me work it through the steps and see where you went wrong.
That is fantastic.
So we had to teach students how to watch videos. You can't just turn it on, watch it, and turn it off like you do a Netflix series.
Correct.
You have to watch for learning. And so I communicated that with parents as well so that they would understand. The interesting part was by the time we got to parent-teacher night, when they came to visit in the classroom, I had parents telling me they were watching my videos and relearning physics and enjoying it.
That is fantastic.
Yes.
That is fantastic. Oh, so you're basically, you have to literally model for them how to learn from a video, because that's really interesting. Now, do you have any specific platform to post those videos, like Blackboard or anything like that, or was basically sent through email, or what kind of technology do you utilize to send those videos to the students? Because sometimes the videos can be a little heavy in terms of the space that they may occupy.
Right.
It may be hard to say do you used to post it in YouTube, or what do you used to do?
I used a variety of platforms, and all of the things you mentioned are easy. YouTube is a really easy, free way that you can create your own channel, so that students just have your collection of videos there to watch. I personally really like Weebly. That's a site that allows you to create your own website. So I actually created an entire website for my course with the videos, with reference materials, with additional resources for students. So they had an entire website to go to. And of course, many schools now, with the integration of technology, are including learning management platforms. And so those provide an excellent vehicle for displaying your videos
And
as well.
do you provide training, like with those platforms, do you provide training to the students and the parents as well?
Oh, absolutely. And my students, here's the real beauty of having a flipped classroom, is that you now have an archive of all of your instruction. So when students are out sick, when you have the student who says, oh, I was out the last 4 days with strep throat, what did I miss? And I have 10 minutes because I have to go see all of my other teachers as well. So now my students knew, I trained both the parents and the students and communicated with them that everything you need for your learning and to stay up to date is on that website with the videos, the resources. So if students were homesick, they could watch the videos. If students, more importantly, were out for school events, UIL, theater, or football championships, or whatever, these kids are typically so involved in so many more activities, they could now take my lessons with them, and they never missed instruction because they weren't physically present in my classroom. Now when they came to tutorials, they could say, Ms. Akers, I watched the video, I worked these problems, here's specifically where I don't understand, can you help me? So our time became so much more productive together, and it really shifted the responsibility of learning to the students. You're not going to be in class, so here's what you can do to keep up. So it was a beautiful thing, and parents loved that was the one class their students never got behind in.
Now, let me ask you this. Do you see, after implementing flipped instruction, do you see an impact on academic achievement of students?
I'm so glad you asked that,
Yeah.
because I did. I actually compared data from my classroom over about a 4-year time frame, and I saw an average of about a 12-point increase
Wow.
in grades
That is
overall.
fantastic.
It was amazing. It was amazing. But again, I think it's that
What
shift.
about the classroom climate? Do you feel because the quantitative 12% is remarkable, it's amazing, and especially with AP exams and AP content that is so hard for for achievement. Nationwide is a challenge. But what about the climate in the school, in the classroom? I mean, the intangible, the qualitative part of it, like, where the students happier, or, they have better problem solving skills. I mean, you probably didn't measure that, but within your experience in the classroom, do you feel any difference that, in other words, did the classroom environment improve in terms of the dynamic with the students?
Absolutely. I think, again, because I was no longer the sage on the stage. Now the attention was focused on the students, and they were doing the work. The really beautiful part of that also came from an increase in peer tutoring. As I always had students in collaborative work environments, whether it was in a lab or doing problems or applying new concepts. So as I would go about the room and help small groups with specific areas, other groups would turn to their peer while they were waiting for me to get there, and someone in the group always could explain. So I saw an increase in peer tutoring. I saw more time for me to not only help my students learn physics, but also to get to know my students, to have more conversations, to learn what their interests and talents were. And then I was able to take some of that information and incorporate it even into writing tests and writing problems. I could now talk about a problem with skateboarding or football, because whatever I knew their interests were. I think it was a more relaxed environment because students weren't frustrated anymore. They weren't coming in, they weren't walking through my door frustrated because they couldn't do the work the night before and feeling like their grade was already getting behind. Mm-hmm. They were coming in more confident and feeling like they could do it.
The field was a little more leveled.
Absolutely.
In terms of, when they were starting. That's fantastic.
Yes.
Now, was that a contagious process across your school once you started doing it? I mean, do you see other teachers trying to emulate what you were doing?
I did, absolutely. It's a huge commitment on the part of the teacher. I know that the initial.
How do you film it? Do you have like a special camera or what? How do you went through the process? Like,
I just use my laptop. I use the built-in camera on my laptop.
Nothing extremely fashion.
Nothing fancy. No equipment required. There's so many free software programs now. If you have a MacBook, you have iMovie. If you have Windows, you have the movie making program there. And then there's other free software, Snippet and Camtasia. I purchased a software called Camtasia Studio because it allowed me to edit, add video clips, put in music. I really tried to make my videos entertaining, especially as I went along. Exactly. Yeah. And here's what I really loved. As I was explaining physics concepts, making my videos, I could take my phone, I could record on my phone. I could actually go beyond the classroom. I could go outside and sit in my car as I'm talking about momentum and impact. I could go jump off of a fence as I'm talking about gravity. So I was just able to, I felt like, be more creative and engaging and make them understand that physics is about the world around them and it applies to everything we do every day, and make them see that in a real way. It also made them see me as a person and not just their teacher.
So that you, believe it or not, you got closer with the students doing that.
Absolutely.
Now, what are your recommendations, kind of a step-by-step process for those administrators that are looking at us right now, those teachers that are looking at us right now, willing to start this journey with flipped instruction in their schools? What are you recommending to do?
Well, you want to spend some time planning. You want to think about how you're going to communicate it with your parents. Talk with your administration. You want them to know what's going on. But I was so fortunate because my administration was so happy that I was thinking outside of the box and being innovative.
Do they have to approve your videos before you go
No.
live or not? They
Not
trusted
at all.
you.
They trusted
They had
me.
that trusted relationship.
Yes,
with
they had that element of trust. And if you make a few videos and send them to them and explain the process and so they can see how it's going, they'll understand. And they'll see what you're trying to do, or find websites and other teachers that have flipped so that your administrators can see. But I think that anytime a teacher is doing something to help students, they're not going to find a lot of opposition to that. But communicate with parents, train your students, let your students know what your expectations are for them, what you expect them to do with the videos, how to watch the videos. You also have to build in an accountability piece, because kids can't just walk in the door and say, yeah, I watched it. I literally stood at the door and just checked their notes as they came in. And so that was my indication as to whether or not they had done their homework and watched their video. If they hadn't, I had a computer in the back of the room. They were now going to have to do that during class time, so they were going to
While
be
the
a
others
little
were
behind.
going to be working on their exercise.
Exactly. And then just decide how, how you need some software and equipment. But again, that's probably things you already have at home. And then importantly, you need to decide where you're going to host it. What is your accessibility going to be? Is it going to be on YouTube or your school's learning platform? And then you always have to take into account, especially if you're in maybe a lower socioeconomic area, what about a student who doesn't have access to that?
Internet.
So I had a student or two who would come in during tutorials to use my computer. I had a student who had no internet, no laptop, and no phone. So I actually burned them to a DVD, because they did have a DVD player. Once his parents saw the videos on their television and what we were doing, they bought him a phone. So he loved me after that. But almost every student has a phone now and can access that. Just think about those things ahead of time, because you want every student to have equal access. That's very important. And then most importantly, I think, is get feedback from your students. It's very hard sometimes to hear criticism, but ask them, what do you like about this model? How can I do it better? How can I help you learn better? How can I change my videos? That's where I figured out not to make my videos too long.
Okay.
Because you can...
But their attention span is not that long.
Their attention span is short, and if you have a 15-minute video, I would tell them you should plan twice as much time to watch it if you're really pausing and rewinding and learning.
Right.
So a 15-minute video is about 30 minutes worth of homework.
That is fantastic. And before we close it up, I want to give you the opportunity to talk about AP and advanced placement classes, because I know I wanna pick your brain and share with the audience a little bit, because I know you have a lot of experience in that area. It's an area that I have high concerns across the nation, because, for example, with AP Chemistry and AP Physics, only 10% of the student body really ended up taking those classes. And you and I know that within the next 10 years, the STEM field, careers in STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, are going to be the majority of jobs.
Absolutely.
And 80% of those jobs right now are going to males, not females. So my first question will be, in general terms, what does it take to build a solid and effective AP program in your school? And number two, what do you recommend to reach more students and make sure that they are successful in the AP courses?
I think there's two things we can do. I think one piece of that, again, goes back to communication. We have to communicate with parents and students. I think what happens is students get tracked into these GT programs at a young age, first, second grade. And so then they believe from that point on they're not capable of performing at higher levels, and they don't understand that once they get to the high school level, AP is accessible to everyone. That's what I love about College Board, is that they really want an AP course to be available to any student. And every student is good at something. You may love history, I may love science, someone else may love art. There are AP classes in all of those subjects. There's such a variety of AP classes that students can take. So we need to help them understand that we want you to try this. We have to properly train teachers through good professional learning, through summer institutes and college board training. We have to make sure that our teachers are ready to teach these classes and can reach all students. And I think from a district level, we have to be very careful with vertical alignment.
Okay.
That's the real key. If we make sure that we're vertically aligning down through those middle school and intermediate school years, 5th and 6th grade, and we're preparing students and giving them the foundational skills to be successful in AP courses, and we're planting that seed that you can be a part of this, you can do it, you're capable. And we're encouraging students to move in that direction. All students should at least try one AP course, and that needs to be the climate and the culture, and that needs to be something that as adults we're communicating with students and backing it up by giving them the skills through that vertical alignment.
What do you recommend to, one of the things that concerns, because I'm a dad and you're a mother, and you know, we both have daughters, and what do you recommend to close that gap, that gender gap between males and females in STEM fields, you know, like physics, chemistry, math? Somehow there's an intrinsic, systemic, unconscious discrimination. What I mean unconscious, I am 100% sure that it's not on purpose, but somehow the system is discriminating, it's encouraging males to go through those careers where salaries start in 100Ks and they can be really successful. Well, while females have a lot of opportunity, will have a lot of opportunities in that field if they're encouraged. And I think, you know, we need to do something in the system to close that gap. Like I said, 80% of those jobs going to males.
That's right.
So what do you, in your experience, in your perspective, you know, not only as an educator but as a mother, what do you recommend to close that gender gap?
I think we have to, again, start at those early formative years. We have to give girls and minorities encouragement and opportunities for success and opportunities to experience that success in those early formative years, whether that's through summer camps, partnerships with NASA. We live in the most STEM-rich community there is in the country here. Wonderful summer camps available at U of H and other universities in our area. So I think we really have to take all of those entities and partner with schools and bring that in at the younger ages. We can't wait until they're in the 9th or 10th grade to encourage them to move towards STEM. We have to give them opportunities to experience it and be successful in it at the younger ages and give them encouragement in that direction from there.
That is fantastic. I want to thank you one more time, Ellen, for being here with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Folks, remember out there that you have this video and many others on Antonio Corrales' YouTube channel and startingevaluationassessment.com webpage. Stay tuned, help somebody today, and see you next time.